So we're talking about pads, the Americana Global Pads. One of the common problems you see today is the delamination and glue issues of the foam pads on the long throw machines. They're oscillating and moving so much and they generate so much heat, the foam just breaks down and the cells flatten out and the glue releases and it literally just rips your pad apart. Another problem we see today with pads during paint correction is as this pad gets hot, especially here in the center, it's building up all that heat as you correct the paint, then the center of the pad starts to wear in and divot in, and that's because the foam is being damaged. You can kind of see. So there's other companies like Rupes, who put the center hole in the middle in order to create some more airflow. But the problem that we run into with the pads like these is they have this extra material around the edges. So that is actually going, I'll show you on this other pad. Around the back of the pad, you can tell where it's breaking down around the edge. What that's from is the backing plate is actually edging into the extra or excess foam around the edge. And it's over time just wearing it out. So that's another cause of delamination and glue issues is the excess foam and the backing plate of the machine breaking that down over time. So with the Americana Global Pad, it's an exact fit design for the backing plate. It has the ventilation holes in order to increase airflow, which is going to keep the surface of the paint cooler. It's also going to keep the pad itself cooler so that the cells don't incur damage from heat. Let's see. Anyway, so we're gonna get into the correction process on this demon. I'm gonna run my test pass with my Americana Finesse, my black pad. This is basically my go-to for finishing on every job. This pad is dry right now, so my very first application, I'm gonna put a little bit more product than I typically would so that it can get into the pores of the pad so that every part of the surface area that I'm using against the paint is actually working for me. I'm still not used to having this belt on, so I can just tuck that right there. So now we're prepped and primed. Let me show you a few things. So on this surface, you're always trying to keep the machine as flat as you possibly can against the paint surface. So imagine this being flat. This is actually an upward slope to here, and it's peaking here. It's got a big upward slope here. So this panel is not flat. It's got a lot of curve to it. So you're gonna wanna focus away from the edges. That's where the thinnest part of the clear coat is. You don't wanna wear that down. So you have these flat areas. So there's a body line right here. And then you have the crest of that body line here. And then you have your flat area here. So as you work this area, you're gonna wanna work back and forth, making a pass this way, and then you make a pass this way. 50% overlapping passes. So I do this, and I move 50% further, and overlap on my way back. Now you don't want a lot of arm speed here. You want to use the buffing liquid and the machine and let that do the work for you. You shouldn't be fighting the machine. You shouldn't be getting really aggressive with the paint unless you could be working on some heavily defected paint with the rotary machine and you can really grind it and flow it out. But typically, in your standard paint correction, this is going to be a little bit more effective. Slow, steady passes. You want to let the buffing liquid, let the pad, the machine do the work, give it time to break down underneath the pad and actually level the surface and remove the defects. So after I make a pass this way, I'm going to work a section about 2 by 2. So I'm going to probably work this section here. Now there is a slope like this from this hood scoop, and then this slopes down here, and this slopes down here. So this front clip, there's almost 2 different areas that you have to focus on. So you would polish here, and then on the way back, you would focus your pad concentration on this side, because you can't get that pad perfectly flat. If you have a panel and a curve, you can't get that pad perfectly flat. So you have to find a way to work the curve on both sides so that you're getting complete coverage. Now, as I said, so you would work this, and then this body line comes all the way up here, and then it turns out this way. So you got a slope going down, and then you've got a ridge right here. So this is a tiny little ridge. It's a high chance to burn the paint here because you have a big pad surface and you're trying to put the proper concentration of that surface on this small area. So this would be probably my first section. I would probably work this area right here as my second section, and then I would move and work this area. So I'd be 1, 2, 3, and that would pretty much cover these sections here. Now that ridge comes out right here. So this is a really tricky spot to polish on a hood because you try to get it in there and the safety mechanism built into the machine will pull the head rotation out, and then you're just oscillating. And if you're just oscillating, then you're not creating or you're not correcting the paint. So as you come on this line, you almost have to roll your machine flat to the crest of this plateau. So I would work in this way, and I would work my pad in there, and I would come back and forth. And that ensures me that I get this area here corrected. Now the same thing on this side. My pad's flat. It's not going to let me work into that corner. So as I come into this area, I'm going to flatten my pad out, and I'm going to roll my machine very gradually up and over that slope in the paint. So I can work it here, can work it here, can work it from this side, and I'm working this, and that gives me the ability to correct this tough area of the paint. You can even come in with a rotary tool, which is going to have that forced rotation, and you can use the forced rotation to just grind through the corner. But the DA machines that have the built-in safety, whenever you get to this point, it wants to pull it out because you're in a vulnerable position. So work it like that. It's going to give you the opportunity to use that machine. This, you just want to be very cautious as you work this top edge. It's only about that big. So I would just set the edge of my pad on there very lightly, no pressure, and I would just let the machine walk this way, Maybe increase my arm speed slightly just so that I'm not spending any bad or damaging time on the edges up here. You know, you got 1, 2. All right. Another thing about edges. Kevin watches this video and he sees me using his demon as a chalkboard. Hopefully he doesn't get upset. So whenever you're working this edge and you think your pad is on the surface, it is spinning in this direction. So when you're on this edge and the pad is spinning this way, you want to roll off the edge with the concentration of your pressure. It's a very minor adjustment, just a nice little twinge that puts the focus of your correction on this little pie piece of the pad. And you want to roll off this edge. That way, as the pad rotates and comes back around, you don't want it to be digging in on this edge. If your pressure in your machine is on the back side here, then it's causing a lot of heat and friction on this part of the panel. So you want to roll, to over exaggerate it, you're going to bring your machine up like this on that front edge. And again, you can maybe move your arm speed just a little quicker so that you're not resting on those compromising positions. And you're just going to work it back and forth. And so this is almost its own section. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 sections that I'm going to run just right here. I may be able to cut it down a little bit. It just depends on how quickly the buffing liquid is drying out on the paint surface. Once it's dry, then it's not doing any good anymore. If you're dry polishing, you're not correcting. So you want to make sure that you have that lubricity, you have that buffing liquid on the surface. If you're drying it out, time to stop, apply some more product. Drop the lid. The Americana Stripper is a brand new product from Americana Global. It's an ultimate residue and oil remover. So the two situations that I typically use this product is after my wash process. I've already washed it, I've clayed the car, and now I'm going to decontaminate the paint to virgin paint or surgically clean before I start my paint correction. What that does, it removes oil, grease, wax, polymers, anything that may be still embedded into the pores of the clear coat. Those contaminants that are on there can hinder the efficiency of your paint correction process. So that's why you do that before you do a paint correction. So then once I've corrected the paint, I'm working really clean, keeping the residue off the car, wiping it down after every pass. You don't want to end up with a bunch of residue everywhere. The longer you leave it on there, it dries, it's harder to get off. Then you have the chance of scratching or marring the paint by just removing the dried buffing liquid. So we corrected, and then this can be your ceramic coating prep. It's a solvent bath, it's a paint solvent, safe on just about any surface. You do want to test it on like interiors or plastic porous surfaces. You're going to want to test it in an inconspicuous spot just to make sure that you don't damage the plastic trim. Just good measure to check that first. But you're going to take a clean, lint-free microfiber towel, load it. I'll put about 10 squirts in there. I don't even have to worry where this is at. I can just put it in my helper belt here. So this side of the towel is loaded with the Americana Stripper product. Now I'm going to wipe down just half the hood here, and I can see the liquid on the surface of the paint. Just going to rub it in really nicely, make sure I have good, complete, even surface coverage. You want to focus on your edges, your body lines, the cracks. Those are the places that you're going to end up leaving behind product. So after I wipe that panel there, I'm going to give it about 30 to 45 seconds to dry and evaporate, break down any contamination. Then I'm going to take my dry, lint-free microfiber towel and just wipe off any remaining or residual residue left behind from the stripper. That sounded weird. So we have a surgically clean, virgin surface that's ready for paint correction.